Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Cry, little sister. Come to your brother.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Missing Frames. This is the podcast where we watch all the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. I'm your host, Shawn Eastridge. We're over here on the Nerd Party Network just chilling out with the likes of Nerd Nuptial, A24 Project, Aggressive Negotiations, SETI Alpha 3. There's so much going on over here. You've got to check it out. It's all at thenerdparty.com. Go do that. Follow the Nerd Party at Join Nerd Party. Like us on Facebook, the Nerd Party. And also there's an Instagram, because why not? And that's just the Nerd Party as well. And hey, if you like Missing Frames, and I know you do, because why else would you be listening to this? Feel free to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. It doesn't have to be 5 stars, but really it does, because I will love you the mostest if that is the rating and the review you leave. I will even read it. I'll read it. This is breaking on Missing Frames. I will read your review as long as it's 5 stars. Anything less, I don't love you less, but I love you less enough to not read your review. So it has to be a 5-star review. Anyway, I am so excited to invite Mr. John Mills back to the show. John, welcome back. It's been way too long.
It has been incredibly too long, and I think anybody who doesn't give you a 5-star rating is, well, I mean, justified, really.
I was about to say, it sounds like something you would probably do.
Oh, curses. I've tipped my hand. Oh, no.
And we are actually, it's been a while since we've done a movie on Missing Frames that I haven't seen.
Yes.
But you threw this one out here, and I said, let's go for it. We're going to be doing Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys. And what inspired this pick, John?
My gosh, I don't rightly remember. Oh, no, I do remember. It's because when you and Sarah did the, you talked about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You talked
Alex
about
Winter.
Alex Winter.
That's right.
And you said, oh, he was in The Lost Boys, but I've never seen that. And I was listening in my car, and I said, what? What? And as soon as I got to work, I was like, I sent you a text message.
Caused
like,
a 10-car pile up. There's still people who will never forgive you for that. But
that's true.
All for a good cause.
But this episode is dedicated to them.
To their memory.
Yes.
So, not only that, but Alex Winter is what inspired it. But the other thing is, I've never seen a Joel Schumacher movie that isn't Batman related, ever.
I think that's stunning too, because that definitely skews your view of him as a director, because he has had a very storied and rich career outside of the Batman movies. And I think that especially in the nerd community, there's a habit to pigeonhole somebody for a specific thing. And
you can see it too in his filmography. I was just looking through, because you're absolutely right. He has a really impressive filmography. He did St. Elmo's Fire, this movie, Flatliners, which I don't know if is the original considered good?
It exists.
But he did, The Client with Tommy Lee Jones and
Yep.
Susan Sarandon.
Yes.
And he has a pretty impressive.
He did A Time to Kill. He did he did a comedy movie with Mr. T called DC Cab.
And that's the one we should be watching, but we'll come back to that.
Oh,
but really,
we'll come back to that one.
Yeah, really, you look at this, and it's like the guy has a really impressive resume, and you're absolutely right. And you can see post-Batman and Robin, it kind of I guess it kind of fizzles out a little bit. I remember Phone Booth. People seem to like that.
That was good.
And then the Phantom of the Opera, the number 23 with, is that Jim Carrey? I didn't know he directed that.
Yeah, Phantom of the Opera was an interesting version of the film. Gerard Butler as the Phantom was not the casting choice I would have made, but it was a bold one. But Emmy Rossum, I think, played Christine Daae in that. And
she's not bad.
She can sing, too, like crazy good singer.
But you bring up a good point. He got really pigeonholed. And to be fair, I'm just as guilty of that as anybody, because even though I consider Batman Forever, if you go back and listen to the Batman episode I did with Brad Gullickson and Aaron Prescott of the Rest in Pictures podcast, I think Batman Forever is my favorite of those first 4 movies, and I know you. I can see your eye twitching over there. And I
Is
know,
it that
I know
obvious?
It's hard for anybody. Really, it's hard for anybody to hear that. I think that, but I wouldn't go out of my way to call Batman Forever or Batman and Robin good movies. And for the longest time, like I said, that's the only exposure I've had to Schumacher. And Schumacher has kind of been turned into like a punchline in a way. Like people are real quick to associate him with all this negativity. But it seems unmerited based on a lot of the other work he's done.
Yeah, and let's not forget his massive contributions to House of Cards. He directed a ton of those episodes.
Right.
And he's actually, I hate to use the word actually. It seems so demeaning and dismissive, but he is a very talented filmmaker. He has a great he has a great way of pacing scenes, of getting performances out of particularly young actors. You will find out, Phone Booth had Kiefer Sutherland, Flatliners had Kiefer Sutherland, Lost Boys has Kiefer Sutherland. So obviously he's got a wavelength. Yeah, well, he's got a wavelength with him. And, certain actors and directors know how to work with each other. And I don't think that Schumacher would have a career as long as he has if he wasn't a pleasure to work with. Right. I know that that's such a that's like a punchline in and of itself. But yes, there are difficult directors who get work, but not people who are able to switch genres as easily and work with as many high-profile stars. If somebody's difficult to work with, eventually they hit a wall, unless they're like a Kubrick.
And a lot of times I think people forget that Batman Forever, he was brought in to make a very specific kind of Batman movie, and that's exactly the kind of Batman movie he made. With Warner Brothers wanting the franchise to go more, they wanted to sell action figures and toys. Batman Returns took it too dark, and they wanted to go a little more campy. Batman and Robin totally went too far in that direction, but Batman Forever to me is a decent balance between Burton's real quirky, real dark and twisted, and the overt campiness of Batman and Robin. I see. Some faces that might suggest otherwise.
I'm going to politely disagree. I think that it's a child of two impulses, the one that produced Batman and Robin and the one that wanted to make Batman Returns. And it's not peanut butter and chocolate necessarily coming together on that one.
But the point is that he gets so maligned for those movies.
Yeah.
And really he came in and it's just kind of, he was like, look, I made the movie that we all wanted to make. We all agreed to make. So sue me.
For sure. For sure.
When Batman Forever, when he was announced as director as Batman Forever, were you familiar with his work? Were you already a fan of his work? So had you seen The Lost Boys in theaters? Was that a movie that you enjoyed?
I was not able to see it in theaters, but I did see it on video. It was quite a sensation, as I remember, when it came out. I don't think I saw it in theaters, at least. I'm pretty sure I didn't because it was rated R. But I think especially, it'll be interesting to get your read on it because in the years since, it is definitely not. It's definitely not, except for maybe one scene, it's definitely not what would be considered R material now.
Okay.
But it does have a very specific flair, and I fell in love with it that summer, and I fell in love with it very specifically as well because of its soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack I know about. I know Cry Little Sister.
Yes.
That was a song, I don't remember how I got introduced to it, but I remember there was one summer, I think maybe right out of high school, where I just was listening to that song on a loop, even though I'd never seen this movie, which I think that song is the theme, quote unquote, of this movie.
And it has, oh my gosh, it has so many great tracks. Schumacher's always had a great ear. He really has. If you go through the soundtracks all the way back to DC Cab, and St. Elmo's Fire has one hell of a song on it that's, an indelible mark of the 80s and everything. He has an ear for great music. And the Lost Boys soundtrack stands as one of my all-time favorites and is ultimately responsible, believe it or not, for me becoming a fan of The Doors. because there's
Really?
a cover of People Are Strange by Echo and the Bunnymen that appears in the film. And so the first time I ever heard People Are Strange was at Echo and the Bunnymen. And I was in school later, and I loved the song. And I had a friend who said, well, if you like that, I've got something for you to listen to. There was a greatest hits that the Doors released when Morrison was going through his legal troubles called 13, because it had 13 songs on it. And he gave it to me, and he said, listen to this. And so, because he wanted me to hear the original version.
So ladies and gentlemen, John is probably the biggest fan of the Doors that I know. And I didn't know that story. I didn't know that this movie led to you becoming a huge Doors fan. That's crazy. So at the very least, you owe this movie that.
Oh, I do. And the thing is, I have not watched this movie in a very long time, but I have very fond memories of it, and I do not have a low opinion of it. I have a pretty good opinion of it. I'll be very interested to revisit it. It's probably been about 10 or 15 years since the last time I saw it.
Okay.
But it definitely is, I would not have been down for doing this if I didn't enjoy it. If I did,
okay.
And I definitely think people around my age, if you mention the Lost Boys, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like we all and thanks to this movie, we also wound up getting the comic pairing of Corey Feldman and Coreys Haim.
Right, which is another thing that's in this movie. There's so much about this movie that I know without having seen it. And I feel like my exposure to this movie as a kid, every teenager I knew, whether it was like a family member or somebody I knew by association, it felt like every one of them had this poster on their wall.
Oh, yeah.
And it just felt like I knew. I was like, oh, the Lost Boys. That's like that R-rated. It looks real risky. Like, I don't know what it's about. But it was always like around, and it always felt like this kind of like, that forbidden movie that all the teenagers, all the kids older than me who are way cooler than me can watch it, but I'm not allowed to because I'm like 6. So it's always been around in the back of my mind as a movie. I'm like, I should probably get around to that someday.
Here's another great thing about it is that the title is a Peter Pan reference.
Yes.
And I did not grow up in a Disney-centric household, so I didn't know that until I was an adult. And I went, oh, that's pretty clever.
I think maybe as a 6-year-old, I wanted that to be somehow a sequel to Peter Pan, because I was a big Peter Pan fan growing up. And maybe the Lost Boys title attracted me because I was like, oh, I wonder if it's at all related. No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, no, for me, it's totally reverse. For me, you say Lost Boys, I don't think of Peter Pan. I never thought of Peter Pan. This was my only reference to it.
Okay, and you're excited to rewatch it, and I'm genuinely interested in seeing it because it feels like it does have this kind of cult status about it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. The movie got a pretty solid reception, didn't it? But it feels like one of those that maybe wasn't as critically well received, but it has been held in a lot of fans. It's close to a lot of fans' hearts. Like a lot of people hold it in high regard.
Yeah, this is definitely one where the critics were harder on it than the movie-going public. But just take a tour through Rotten Tomatoes for that story 100 times over. Where it's always like the critics are kind of split, 50, 70% positive, I don't know. And then like the audience is like 90%,
right.
Again, you hit the nail on the head. There's a definite following, especially if you're of a certain age, because it broke at a certain time. And it also features, well, let's just say there's something where you definitely go, oh yeah, this is definitely a Joel Schumacher movie. You'll know it when you see it.
Well, that is a resounding endorsement for the film, and now I can't wait to watch it. I think let's just get to it and watch The Lost Boys.
Let's do it.
Now available to own on video cassette.
Welcome back to the show. I have now seen The Lost Boys John, I need you to help me walk through my feelings about this movie. I am so glad you're here. I have a complex reaction to this movie.
Ooh.
I don't know entirely how I feel, and I want this conversation to help push me in the right direction. I will say, as of this moment, this is a movie I found incredibly charming.
Mm-hmm.
There were things I really loved about it, but there were a lot of things I didn't love about it. Not enough to make me dislike it, but I don't know if it worked well enough for me to really embrace it. But how did this rewatch fare for you?
To be honest, I actually think I came away with a better opinion than I did the last time I watched it.
So you liked it more?
I did.
Awesome.
Because I think that this is a movie, and I think the reason I've always gone back to it, even when I've been a little tepid on my reaction to it, is because I think you're right to point out that it's charming, that makes up for a lot. But I think that at its baseline, even when it might have a misstep here or there, it has a very clear and straightforward structure about it. You know what type of story you're getting into, and the fact that it works as, I think, a very beautiful sort of, symbolic journey of what it's like to graduate from childhood to adulthood, because that's, Michael's story. Is he's the rebelling teen, he's the broken home, he's not sure what his direction in life is going to be, and he falls in with the wrong crowd and starts doing bad stuff, but his family is there for him, and they love him, and we're going to work through this, and we're not going to leave you and abandon you. But of course, hopefully, in most people's journey through times in their lives, that does not involve battling and slaughtering vampires. Yes, that's, Well,
that's an interesting take on it. I think for me, what held this movie back from really working is it felt like it was caught between trying to be Michael's story and something more juvenile, like the Coreys Haim, his brother. Is his brother Sam? Is that his brother's name? Which one's Sam?
Yeah, Sam.
Sam. So Sam being the little brother's story versus the older brother's story. And I realized as I was looking through the behind the scenes stuff, that's actually a pretty solid read on the movie. Because originally, this was going to be one of the most shocking and wonderful things I never expected to see in my life was a Richard Donner production of a Joel Schumacher film.
Yeah,
I never thought I'd see those two credits go side by side. But originally, this was going to be Donner's follow-up to The Goonies. And it was written, the screenplay was kind of written to be like, some young kids, vampires, and it was meant to be in the vein of The Goonies, where it was going to be a little more steered towards kids. And when the film kind of got hung up in production hell and it wasn't really going anywhere, Donner was like, you know what, I'm going to go do Lethal Weapon. I'll produce this and let's hire somebody else. How about Schumacher? And Schumacher came in and was like, I don't like the kids angle, but let's up the age of Michael and the vampires, and let's make it a little more risky and a little sexier. But the movie for me felt kind of caught tonally between the two. I feel like this is a perfect movie for 12-year-olds, kind of like what you were saying beforehand when you were like, I don't think this is necessarily an R-rated movie today. I think you're right. The movie is a little gruesome near the end.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I felt like this is a movie that if I'd seen it as a 10 or 12-year-old, I would have been like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And some of the elements feel catered towards a younger audience.
Sure. I will also say that the bonfire murder scene, that one's a little disturbing too.
Yes.
That's
definitely that was the moment where I was like, oh, I see. Because by that point, there was a sex scene between Star and Michael, and I thought that was like, oh, this is why it got its R rating. But that is one of the tamest sex scenes I've seen in any movie, where they kind of kiss each other and the music's playing, and then suddenly we're like flying through the clouds, and I'm like, wait a second, what's happening right now? But I thought that was gonna be like, oh, of course they upped it a little bit to make it a little more mature and raunchy, but then when that didn't pan out, I was like, well, I don't know why this movie's rated. The campfire explained it.
Yeah, I think that it's still something that I could show a 13-year-old. I mean, by today's standards, and they'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
Just because.
Well, I was comparing it to like even Raiders of the Lost Ark feels more violent than this.
I'd put this in the Temple of Doom category, where it's going to be.
Yeah. No, that's a fair comparison.
It would be like a parent's personal call. You have to know your kids pretty well, but there are a lot of kids in the tween age that have probably seen worse. Like my kids talk about in 5th grade. Oh, my friend saw it, and my jaw's on the floor. I haven't seen it, but good grief, I know about it.
Right.
Really? What? How are these kids sleeping? It would bother me.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
That's the thing. So the Lost Boys, I think that's where I had trouble with it. Is I was like, is this supposed to be like kind of goofy? It feels a little goofy at times. It feels a little tongue in cheek. But I guess I was kind of expecting maybe something a little more somber and a little more disturbing. It felt just a little. It felt a little goofy to me, like the whole movie.
But see, that's actually what I think makes it work. What helps make it work.
Okay.
And I think that's maybe part of the Donner DNA that's left over in it. And probably even some of the stuff that Schumacher brings in. Because again, you always have to reference his Batman movies and stuff like that. But this is something where when you have a vampire movie, you have a choice. You can either go a little campy with it, have a little fun, which I think this movie does, where the scares are not intended to scar you or mess you up for the rest of your life, but they're the funhouse scares. They're the scares of like, ooh, that fun jump and a giggle afterwards of, oh, I enjoyed that. That got my heart pumping. Or you can go down the other route of, this is horrific and I'm going to never sleep for a week afterwards sort of thing, right? And I think that this movie very wisely commits to making it something that is easier to consume, because I think also we're very much in an age nowadays. I mean, maybe this is a product of its time, but we're very much in an age nowadays of over-explaining, well, the origin of vampires is that the virus came about in thousands of years ago. Whereas this is just, they're vampires.
They're vampires.
They
hang out on a boardwalk and hunt people on a carousel.
Right. There's no deep dive origin of the vampire thing. There's no Anne Rice sort of thing about it.
Well, I did appreciate the simplicity of that. And I think one of the things I had a struggle with was the character of Michael in general. Because Michael, for the most part, is he's kind of, like, speaking to your point, you're kind of like, yeah, it is sort of tongue-in-cheek. And it's hard because Michael is a very, like, relatively serious, grounded character. His younger brother is the movie that this was, I guess, before Schumacher came in. I almost feel like the Coreys Haim stuff probably exists almost identically to what it was before, and they added the Michael and Star stuff to make it a little more adult and add that kind of appeal to it.
So, but let me turn that around and say that I think a mixture like that specifically works, especially for material like this, because it's a lot like one of the things that I think is greatly misinterpreted about Return of the Jedi is people love to drag the Ewoks. Oh, Ewoks, haha, little teddy bears and everything like that. But if you were to take the Ewoks out of it, Return of the Jedi is actually more disturbingly dark than The Empire Strikes Back. So there's a counterbalance that works. And I think that this movie is the same way because it is about the family. Yes, Michael's arc is about, and I stand by it. This is about, he falls in with the wrong crowd, but your family's always going to be there. But you have the brother relationship. And I think that emphasizes why family works, that we're not always the same people. because Michael and Sam have a lot of tension, especially as Michael starts falling in with that crowd and everything. But then it comes back to, who does Michael turn to? He turns to his sibling, his brother. He's going to understand, I need help. I'm throwing out my lifeline to you. You've got to help me work through this. And even though they butt heads, and even though they don't necessarily get along all the time, as brothers frequently fight with each other, it's something where there's that dynamic of, when it comes down to brass tacks, you're going to stick together, because you're brothers,
Right.
And so, I mean, maybe that's something that it resonates particularly with me on some level, but I think that it is just speaks again to that theme of the resilience of our core relationships when we're going through difficult times.
Sure. So that's interesting, because I didn't maybe because I was so thrown off by the tone of the movie, I wasn't paying as much attention to the brother stuff. But it is there. You're right. There is a strong subtext of the family and the brothers' relationship, which I really liked. I really liked their kind of. The younger brother is young enough to not be able to relate to oh God, my brother wants to date this hot girl. What's going on? But there's a kind of sweet dynamic between the two of them helping each other. And I did like that. The cast is really fantastic. I really liked Coreys Haim. I don't think I've ever seen Coreys Haim in a movie. I've heard so much. We were joking about Coreys Haim and Corey Feldman. This is the first time I've seen him in a movie. So it was he's a sweet kid. This is adorable.
All right, hold on. Before you move on, I'm going to throw in the ring that at some point you have to watch License to Drive.
Okay.
And we'll walk away from there.
Let's just do it right now. Let's just make this episode a commentary of that movie. But I really liked the cast. I think that was the script shortcomings aside. I think my beef is Michael as a character I wasn't invested in. He's kind of kind of a bad boy in a way, and then he falls in love with this girl, and then he all of a sudden he's trying to date her, but I didn't quite buy into their relationship. But the performances kind of push you through it. I was I like this guy specifically because I like the actor. I like what's his name? Is it Jason Patric?
Yeah, Jason Patric. This was his big, he kicked the door in with this one. As did
Right.
Jami Gertz, as did, from my perspective, as did Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh yeah. Now I wanted more Kiefer in this movie. I loved him in this movie. Kiefer Sutherland is fantastic. I think this is amazing. I think this was the next movie he did after Stand By Me, which I think he said Stand By Me was his first feature, or his first American feature at least. But this is the second thing. If that's the case, this is the second thing he'd done, and he's so good. He's so creepy but confident, and he kind of, you're very attracted to him, and it's the perfect vampire. It's that kind of danger, but you're you can't help but be kind of seduced by his behavior. And I loved that performance. And for a good chunk of the movie, he kind of disappears, and that was really unexpected. I thought Kiefer was going to play, or David, the role he plays, I thought it was going to play a bigger part in the movie, or at least the second part of the movie. I wasn't expecting it to kind of turn into sort of a, Michael's a vampire, we got to help him, and then have Corey Feldman come in and be a vampire hunter.
I love the Frog Brothers. That's one of the things that I love most about this movie, is that it's so crazy and so fun, and it ties into, but the thing is, it has that payoff with the granddad's last line of the movie.
Well, that was inexplicable to me, too. I was like, wait, so the granddad knew about the vampires and he let his family move here without warning? I just felt like, what is wrong with this family? They move here, it's the murder capital of the world, and the grandpa, it's all these people are getting killed. And then at the end, the grandpa's like, oh, those damn vampires. And you're like, wait, you knew? So you willingly let your family...
I think that is one of the greatest endings in modern American cinema.
My God, John.
That scene where he says all the damn vampires, and then it cuts to the family sitting there staring at him open mouthed, and the light goes out as he closes the fridge. I love that ending 100% of the time. It's so much fun. That's the thing, right? Is this movie is fun. That is what is great about it. This is the funhouse scare aspect of a horror movie. And that is what I want. That is what I enjoy, because, we got enough stuff going on in the world where it's like, I don't necessarily need to watch A House of a Thousand Corpses all the time. I can watch something that sort of lets me off the hook a little bit and gives me a laugh and a kick in the seat. And I want to see the good guys win. And I want to see these sorts of things, go down and have a nice, fun adventure. And I think that is one of the things that makes it work so well, is the fact that you have that tension, because this is a family that's been broken and they're trying to find their way. They establish early, through the dialogue, and when they arrive, there's not even a TV at Grandpa's house. And there's nothing. And, you know what? I haven't seen a TV. And you know what no TV means? It means no MTV. And Michael has a line about how they're dead broke. And he's saying, just be glad you got somewhere. He doesn't say this word exactly, but he's like, be glad you got somewhere to live, right? We're at the end of our rope here. And so you have those characters go down there. And just the idea, every kid that went in and shopped at a comic book store wanted to find out that the proprietors of it were in some way as cool as the Frog Brothers. They never were, ever.
But you always wanted that.
And I want to take a detour here talking about the comic book store. Okay, no right-minded comic book store would ever set up open air near a beach, because that saltwater air is terrible for your books, okay? Number 2, they have all of the books out there laid out magazine style, which is fine, I guess, if you're running as a front for your vampire hunting thing, but you're going to have a little bit more order than what was apparent on their shelves. Item number 3, we establish that Sam is a comic book collector, and the Frog Brothers, again, let's just say this is a front for their vampire hunting front. Right? Sam, when he starts rearranging the Superman comics, hello, obvious nod to Richard Donner, he starts picking them up and rearranging them. Oh, you'd never put this issue with this issue because they haven't even introduced. And that's a great bit of, a comic book fan would do that.
Right.
But then he picks up a comic book in such a way that I could tell you for sure he wasn't a real comic book fan. Because he puts his thumb on the spine, creates a crease. You've instantly knocked it right out of mint category. Never mind the fact all the saltwater air that's going on. But he picks it up and he moves it around as if he owns it. If you broke the spine of a comic book like that, you are basically honor bound to buy it because you have damaged it. It is no longer worth anything to the true collector.
I think you've summed up what's wrong with the Lost Boys.
That's the only thing that's wrong with the Lost Boys.
But I loved Corey Feldman in particular was fantastic. He and Kiefer Sutherland were my favorites because I think that my issues with the movie, it comes back to the fact that I guess I thought it was going to be a little darker and a little more twisted, and it ended up being way wackier than I expected. And Corey Feldman is a great example because he's basically like, yeah, you want to kill some vampires? Kill your brother. It'll make you feel better. Like that kind of stuff. But the way he talks is so it's so funny that I loved it. I couldn't tell if the movie wanted me to take it seriously. And it's because of the fact that Michael, his relationship with Star, which feels like very... He sees her, he falls in love with her because she's glorious, and they have a little thing, and then he becomes kind of a vampire, and she's kind of like, no, you can't drink that. You can't. I didn't understand their relationship, and then he comes to see her, and she's like, Michael, let's just bang each other, and then they sleep together.
No. Okay, see,
there wasn't much for me to like engage with.
That is a gross
story.
mischaracterization.
I didn't understand. I was like, am I supposed to be like invested in this?
That is a gross mischaracterization because she specifically says Michael was supposed to be her first kill.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
She goes out and she's given off the vampire magnetism, which is doubly effective because it's Jami Gertz. Because I mean,
she's
wow.
Jami Gertz. Yeah,
she was an attractive young lady.
Even before she was a vampire.
Yes. And so, she's giving off that vibe. And that's so basically that one line, "You were supposed to be my first kill." Remember, she's toying with him, right? There's this sort of like seduction thing going on. And then David and the gang show up. And David's really antagonistic, like, "Star, hey, come on." And that leads to the bike chase and everything, which inevitably leads to, once Michael shows that he's not going to just fall for her, straight out and be, like roped into the to be caught, then David gets interested in him. "How far are you willing to go, Michael?" And I think that works. I think it works really well. I do. Like, I'm a little bit thrown off by by your comment that you're sort of like struggling with what to feel about it, because I really think that it just declares from the opening moments that this is going to be a fun movie to watch. And I think that's a great thing. And I think that's what makes it endure, because there are so many vampire movies. You watch Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is good and fun in its own way, but it's a bit overwrought. And you watch Near Dark, Catherine Bigelow's vampire movie, I think from the same year, 1987. And
That sounds right, yeah.
And that is really good. And then the ending gets a little, and it's really serious, and it's really Bigelow shows, from the get-go, all the promise of her career in that film. But then the ending sort of like collapses under the weight of its own seriousness and the fact that it can't escape it. But Lost Boys is a big production that's powered by simply this desire to entertain the audience. In a lot of ways, the way I feel about the Lost Boys pairs up with why I've come to terms with and enjoy Superman 2, is because there's so much positive energy to it that I can forgive any sort of missteps. And I'm not saying it's a perfect film. I'm not rating it 5 stars or, out of 5 or anything like that. But it has that energy and that positivity of experience to it that I think that's what really makes it special.
I agree about the energy, and there's lots of stuff to like. I think the movie tonally is confused, and I think that is evident from the screenplay and the pre-production history. I think there is an argument to be made that this movie is it's got one foot in this more kind of darker, mature vampire movie, and one foot in this like a kid's movie where these kids are like, well, "Your brother's a vampire. We got to figure out what to do." It really, in the third act especially, when it kind of turns a little bit into Home Alone, which again, I was not. This is not to say I wasn't on board with it. I was just so like completely like I couldn't keep up with the tone. Like I was like I don't know if I'm supposed to be scared or if it's supposed to be funny or if I'm supposed to be like. If I'm supposed to care, but like when they're like putting like all the garlic in the bath water and they got the holy water, and I loved where they go into the church and get the holy water. I thought that was
isn't that a great scene?
And as they're running out, one of the brothers does a little fist pump, like yeah, we're all in this together. I loved that, but it felt difficult. I think the film's rating, because it's rated R. I'm thinking, okay, this is a darker, like it's supposed to be more twisted. And then it just contains all these elements that I'm like, this feels like it's kind of, and I don't mean this is in a condescending way, but it feels like it's kind of a kid's movie to me. Like it feels like it's like this really, the audience for this movie is like I said, 10 to 12-year-olds. And the violence is there almost to be like, no, this is a more mature movie. It's for adults. I almost feel like you could tone down the violence a little bit and just cater it towards that audience. And I maybe would have been less baffled by it.
I don't see the baffling is what I'm saying, because this is something where I don't think that it's a confused tone. I think that it's something where it wisely uses a parallel track, and then everything comes together, I think, quite nicely in the third act. Because, you got Michael over here doing this thing, and this is the serious stuff. And then you've got Sam, and it makes sense. He's the younger brother, that things would be, he's not quite getting how serious it is, right? It's still a little bit of which is the way that the problems, when you're dealing with certain problems in a family, it can be a little abstract until you're face to face with it. And you have these moments where it does ground itself and it comes together. And a lot of it has to do with, through the course of the film, the younger brother turning into the caretaker for the older brother. And as Michael gets sicker and weaker and more confused, the younger brother, he becomes, because this is a family without a dad, and so they're both filling the dad role for each other. Michael's not filling the role the way that you would expect for Sam, and so Sam winds up stepping into it for him. And I know, everybody is looking at their anybody who's listening to this is looking at their phone or their radio or whatever and saying, like, this is the Lost Boys. How are you digging this deep into it? But I'm telling you it's there. I promise you it's there.
I don't think you have a wrong read about the movie. I just think it I was so thrown off by the film's tone. I do think what was one of the more enjoyable things about the movie for me was watching it from the perspective, again, of somebody who's never seen a Joel Schumacher film outside of Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. So that was really cool to watch a movie that it was like I could respect the man as a director. Because I think, especially from a technical standpoint, and the guy Michael Chapman is the director of photography on this film. And he did Raging Bull, he did Taxi Driver. The guy's like a legend. So the movie has a very distinctive look, and there's a lot of the more extreme comic booky stuff you would see in Batman Forever, like the more extreme colors and the more defined kind of wacky look and feel. And especially early on in the movie when they go to that concert and you have the sax guy on stage.
Thank you. Remember when I said before you watched the movie where I was like, look for the one thing that can tell you that it's a Joel Schumacher movie.
Yeah, so that was like, I was like, yeah, this could be the whole movie and I'll be thrilled. It was that and the motorcycle chase where I was like, oh, I guess you got to have a motorcycle chase in a Joel Schumacher movie.
But that is a great motorcycle chase. And that's got some great shots in it.
It concludes with a really impressive shot where the camera pulls out really dramatically, and then you're on the cliffside with the lighthouse. I thought that was real impressive. The film, there's a lot to admire from a filmmaking standpoint. It's a film that it's like, with Batman Forever, I feel like you have to be like, oh, but this is good. I know it's stupid, but you can with the Lost Boys, I feel like you could kind of take a step back and be like, oh yeah, Schumacher's got chops and you don't have to apologize for him.
I think that, in all honesty, playing armchair film psychiatrist, I think that you are secretly appreciative and enjoy this film, but you don't want to admit it. And I think you should give it another watch.
Well, why do you think I don't want to admit it? What do you think is holding me back?
Because you keep going back to what you expected the film to be. And I think that's fair. Because if you look even at the poster is this, everybody's in black and white. Michael is front and center, red background, very striking graphic design for it. It's about vampires.
Even the song "Cry Little Sister" is to me like a very there's almost a tragic element to it. I guess based on the poster, based on the song, I was expecting something a little more gravitas to it, and this just felt like I just was confused. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be getting from this.
But it sets you up for the parallel tone that comes together at the end by the fact that it opens with that "Cry Little Sister" song over the water, beautiful shot over the water, which actually makes me think of another Schumacher Sutherland collaboration. Flatliners opens with a very similar shot, camera skimming over the water going into the shore, and you have that song, and then you have Echo and the Bunnymen's cover of "People Are Strange" right afterward, which, while he sees the sign, they pass the billboard, and then on the back of the billboard, spray painted "Murder Capital of the World," and then it shows this, I think, a great montage of appreciating the quirkiness, the weirdness of Santa Clara, of this weird beach town that's out in California, and the odd characters that you're going to greet and see as you're driving along down the street. And I think that, just that montage after this big sweeping moment coming in with Cry Little Sister and everything, I think it does a great job of establishing we're going to have these two tracks going, and then they're going to come together at the end so that you can have this big vampire showdown with lines peppered in it like "Death by Stereo."
Yeah.
That's a great moment. That is a great moment.
But that's what I'm talking. I was like, I can't take, if I'm supposed to be like in suspense right now, I'm not. This feels so goofy. Like they're exploding head. I couldn't get my finger on the pulse of the movie. I just couldn't figure it out, because it's like, it's goofy in points, but it's not quite goofy enough, and then it's serious in points, and it's not quite serious enough. So I couldn't get over the whiplash. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but does Michael, I'm trying to remember, he kills David. Like, they kind of fight a little bit, and then he immediately kills David. And then Max comes in, and Max is like, I'm the one behind everything. And it was like, this is great. And then the grandpa, he drives in through the house, and there's that amazing shot of Max
the
getting
steak going in, yeah.
And then the grandpa says his line. But I just remember thinking, I was like, it just feels like a weird punchline. And it's like, if we're supposed to be on an emotional journey with Michael, it felt so, that's what I'm talking about. It's just the whiplash effect between the comedy and the drama. Just, it didn't feel like it was hitting the right high points and low points.
I think they complement each other very well because of the fact that, again, it's a fun house. It's a beachside town. It almost seems to fall in line with the idea of that beachside fun house that you would walk into. That sort of like cheap carny scare that you get when you go to the beachside carnival or something like that. And I mean, that's also just a tremendous, I think, exchange when Michael and David are fighting, and he says, "My blood is in your veins, so is mine," and then he kills him. Come on, man, that's a great moment.
That was really goofy. I mean, like I couldn't help but laugh, but like I know I'm being a little down on the movie, but there's something endearing about it and something almost innocent about it, and I really, really admired the performances. I admired the way Kiefer Sutherland is able to say, Michael,
yeah,
Michael, and there's like I think Star. I have a theory that Star was added in because the studio was afraid. They were like, we should probably add a romance between the two of them, because I think the sexual tension between these two guys is a little too strong. So they're like, all right, we'll do a reshoot and we'll have Star be the romantic interest. But I think my favorite sequence in the film is probably that sequence when the motorcycle stuff, and then he goes into their little hideout with them, which again felt very Batman Forever. These guys in their little punk rock place.
Look at the way the scene is lit. It's great. Michael is sitting there. David is sitting there, and he's got this bright white Robert Richardson-esque overhead light shining on him, right? And it's great. It's such a beautifully staged scene, and I think that's this is one of those movies where you could really dig into that visual aesthetic that Schumacher really goes for, which is just these beautiful tableaus. And you have that exchange, maggots, Michael, you're eating maggots. How
I love that. I mean, it was
come
so
on.
I think it was so, again, the goofiness of the scene is like, yeah, come on into our cave. We got Chinese. I was like, by this point, it's like, all right, well, it's clear these guys are vampires to the audience. So just the fact that it was like, come hang out. We're super badass, and we hang out in this underground cave, and we got Chinese.
But while you talk about the pre-production stuff and the decision about things, how Goonies does that feel?
Oh, for sure.
Right? And Goonies is the same thing. You're sitting there and you're talking about the balance and tone and everything. And I'm a guy that does not love Goonies by a stretch. But Goonies has the same sort of tension between it, where there's this really serious, like, terrible, like that family is terrible. And like they're really awful people, but then there's this goofy aspect to it with the truffle shuffle and all these other things that are going on.
Goonies tonally is a kid's movie. Like, it's a kid's movie. I think that's why, and it's been a while since I've seen the Goonies, but I saw it for the first time. I hadn't seen it as a kid, so I didn't grow up with it, and I really loved it, not having grown up with it. But I think the difference is the Goonies is unabashedly like a kid's movie. And it's wacky and it's goofy. Whereas this, like I said, I couldn't grasp what it wanted me to feel. And the other problem is the depth of the characters, particularly Michael and Star and the relationship they were trying to do there. I just didn't think it was enough to justify. I didn't feel invested in it. Like, I didn't feel engaged by it. I was more into to Sam's story. Like, it felt like that was it. Like I said, the screenplay, the tug of war between the two tones of the screenplay, or the original draft of the screenplay and the revised draft with the more adult tone, I felt that. But every time I felt like, oh, this is getting a little more dark, there would always be something that reminded me, like, oh, they really wanted it to be this kind of movie. I guess it would be kind of like if the Goonies was like, there was like brutal murders happen, like brutal, like children were being murdered brutally and their bodies left around, and then it's like wacky truffles, all this stuff. Like, okay. I think that's what it is. Like, that's the difference.
I think you should revisit the Goonies. I really do.
But the Goonies is a kid's movie. Like, I mean, it's a kid's movie. There's raunchy stuff in it. Like, the humor is inappropriate and there's some language and it's a little intense, but for the most part, it's a pretty like rollicking, like high-spirited adventure movie for kids.
I know you don't like me to say anything against St. Donner, but I can tell you that I don't enjoy the
don't
Goonies.
Forget, he's the executive producer on The Lost Boys, so
I know.
We got to tread carefully.
I know. But no, I don't particularly care for Goonies. And I think that a lot of the things that you're talking about, your problems with The Lost Boys, I think apply more to Goonies. Because Goonies has, but I think that there's also a thing that has been lost in modern cinema.
The boys?
The fact that kids can handle a lot more. Like, the whole thing about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is, it's too intense for children. And the line I always love to use is, Beowulf used to be a bedtime story. Right? And Beowulf has some dark stuff going on in it, guys. Kids can handle more than you can think. And you're supposed to use these stories. And again, that gets to the symbolism that I'm talking about. Yeah, there are childlike aspects to it. I think that's what makes this so much fun. There's an embrace of the funhouse aspect of what makes vampires scary to us. But at its core, there is that message that works across the whole thing about the fact that, when it comes down to it, the people that love you will be there for you, and that no matter how different you are or how you got to that point, they're not going to abandon you. Not if they really love you.
Well, let me flip the script and ask something I typically ask in Missing Frames, which is, we're well aware of your opinion on the film and that you love it. Is there anything watching it this time around that struck you that didn't work as well?
Oh, no, there's nothing that struck me more as not having worked well. I know that I'm sort of like digging my heels in to your criticisms, but there is some justification to them because there are some gear shifts. There are some. I think that the tonal thing. I think that what it is it works fine. It complements fine, but it's too sudden sometimes from scene to scene, where it goes from dark to suddenly silly, and from silly to suddenly dark. And I think that those are the transitions that call out the differences between the two tracks. And I think that there's a scene in specific when they go down and they kill their first vampire and they come running out. There is this tremendous moment where David pulls back his hand that's caught fire in the sunlight.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Tonight." And it's freaky. And that really should have just like lap dissolved to, them getting ready for the attack and talking about the attack. And instead it goes into this comedy bit of,
I love that. It's like we weren't prepared. They opened their eyes and said something to us.
Yeah. which is funny and everything, but it undercuts the build to the ending. And so, yes, there are moments where they could have handled the transitions a lot better. It also takes the Lost Boys themselves a little bit too long to exact their revenge on that one guy who they're tangling with on the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
When they kill him with his like by the time it shows up, it's like, oh, that's the guy. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
That's the guy they're
I
killing.
remember him.
Yeah. And it's like, boy, they really hold a grudge for a long time for the undead, but okay. And it was one of those things also where when they kill the party at the beach, I think that would have worked a lot better if the setup had been, there are these people that they're tangling with on the merry-go-round at the beginning, and then the bonfire scene, the way I always remembered it, and this rewatch, jogged me out of it, was that bonfire scene was the group from the merry-go-round.
I see what you're saying.
That would have been
a
better
actually, you bring
moment.
up the bonfire scene. I think what I would have liked more is move the bonfire scene, make it a midpoint in the movie, because it comes a little closer to like kind of near the end of the second act, beginning of the third act, or as far as I remember it, it feels like it happens a little later in the movie. I almost wanted maybe a little bit more of a journey for Michael. Like maybe Michael is real excited. He's like, oh yeah, I'm ready for a change, and like my life sucks and I want to get something more exciting. And he does this thing and he starts to develop these powers, but then you have that be a turning point for him, the bonfire, where it's like this horrific thing that's happening and he realizes what he's turning into, and he decides, like, then he outright rejects it, and then he struggles. Now the movie kind of does that, but it was a little less he seemed a little like he was almost immediately like, what's happening to me? I'm not like into this, and he's becoming kind of a jerk. I think it would have been better if he was more into it at the beginning and a little less frightened by what's happening to him and a little more aware and understanding of it. And then you have a moment where he's like, wait, what am I doing? But I guess there are a couple moments like that, like when he goes after his brother. They just don't feel the beats don't work as strong for me. I almost wanted a little bit more of that struggle and that arc for him.
See, that is surprising to me, because I think that scene where he's going in and he's going to kill his brother in the bath, and the dog attacks him.
The dog attacks him.
Which is great. Yay, dogs. Like that, I think is and it pays off later, because it sets up the exact moment when the dog attacks the other vampire, knocks him into the garlic bath.
Right.
That's a cool thing. And so Chekhov's dog, I guess. But I think that it's one of those things where Michael isn't attracted to it because, again, getting to the symbolism of the story and everything like that, he starts seeing in that moment, to extend the over to the metaphorical thing, the first person he sees his lifestyle change affecting is his brother. He's got anger at his mother. He's upset that his family is broken, but his brother is somebody that he's never going to turn against. And that is, I think, it's entirely possible. I'm willing to accept that it's entirely possible that it's because of this brother dynamic that the movie works so well for me, is because there are certain things about the brother dynamic that remind me of me and my brother. And so it's entirely possible that just resonates more.
I get it. I get that. Because I think the relationship between them is one of the strongest points in the movie, for sure.
Yeah. And the soundtrack.
I think they're I see what you're saying. You're definitely pulling out like more of the movie, the subtext and the themes, I think, than I got from it. But I do. It's not that it's not there. It's like I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. These are things that I must have just missed being so baffled by it. Are there any big standout moments for you? I know we've gone through a whole bunch of different scenes that we've really loved, but are there big, real great moments that even now with this rewatch maybe like as you're coming to understand and appreciate film more, that really stood out to you, that you're like, that's some really great filmmaking?
Michael in the Lair, that first time. I've always loved it. And I was reminded of why I loved it, and the fact that there's a giant Jim Morrison poster in the background.
No, I feel the same way. I really liked that scene a lot. I like the sequence. I like the sequence of them on the bridge. The creepiness of it. I just like. I read that apparently Kiefer Sutherland. I don't know if it's him who says the word Michael this many times, but apparently the word Michael is said 118 times in this movie, and I feel like it could have just been David's character going, "Michael, Michael, join us, Michael. Drink this, Michael."
The most boring scene, not scene, but the most boring day for Kiefer Sutherland was sitting there just saying Michael for 8 hours straight. Now give it to me a little less sensually. But I mean, okay, look, I think we would be highly remiss if we have this whole conversation and then we don't address, at least for a moment, the soundtrack.
Yes, you're right.
Is that soundtrack crazy good or what?
It is a fantastic soundtrack, and I still love. I hadn't heard. I said to the pre-show for I don't remember what happened, but somehow I stumbled on the song "Cry Little Sister" and loved it. This is right around the end of high school for me, and I would listen to it all the time. I don't think I've listened to it for like over a decade. So to hear it again and to be pulled back into those feelings of hearing it for the first time, that song is so good, but the whole soundtrack is good. And I love Echo and the Bunnymen's cover of "People Are Strange." It's great.
You don't. You appreciate it, but you don't love it.
I do. I do. No. I thought it was really it's charming, and it's kind of the punchline at the end of the movie. I love the way it serves as the guy after the grandpa says his line, it just goes right into it.
Having it be a cover doesn't make sense because, quite frankly,
I do wonder why they didn't use the original.
Right.
Why not?
If you can have steak, why would you have hamburger? I don't know.
I mean, is it a licensing thing? Did they just not have the rights? Did they not want to pay?
Like I said earlier, I don't know, but it was at least the gateway drug to me becoming a Doors fan. And obviously, Schumacher was a Doors fan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the young lion photo blown up in the background.
Right.
The young lion photo is one of the most, if you're wondering, it's one of the most popular photos of Jim Morrison. It's very early in the career of the Doors, where he's sitting there with his arms out and looking very sultry towards the camera and everything. Is probably the most famous picture of Morrison that's out there.
Right.
But the soundtrack in specific, right? I cannot tell you how much I listen to that. I'm going to buy it on vinyl. Okay, let that sink in for a second, because the first listen I ever had to In Excess or a Doors song, even though it was covered by Echo and the Bunnymen or anything else, was on that vinyl soundtrack, and I want to hear it again.
Do you think not you, do you think this is a movie that people are willing to turn a blind eye to its flaws because of the soundtrack? I feel like there's some movies out there. I haven't seen The Crow, but I feel like The Crow might be one of them.
It is. You're right.
Okay. Footloose is another one.
Oh,
I feel like people love the soundtrack more than they actually realize how good
that's
the movie is.
Correct.
Do you think The Lost Boys, in some sense, some people cling to it because of the soundtrack?
Oh, sure. And I have no doubt that probably there's a lot of people nodding their heads right now saying that's why he really loves it. I get it. It's fine.
You just made up the whole intricate brotherly love storyline thing just as a way to throw people off your scent.
Just as a way to say how much I appreciate Roger Daltrey's cover of Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. That's correct.
You're right. This movie has a lot of covers. I don't know.
Yes, it does. People Are Strange, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, which honestly, it's a pretty great cover. But I mean, this, the song, Cry Little Sister is a great song.
Yeah.
You have so many great artists on this. And the thing is, again, to harken back to Schumacher's career as a whole, Flatliners has a great soundtrack. Batman Forever, that rock soundtrack they released was terrific.
Oh, yeah.
Batman and Robin, for all of its flaws, the soundtrack was pretty solid
Yeah.
There was there was a great Smashing Pumpkins song on there and all of that stuff. And there were a number of covers on the Batman Forever soundtrack. DC Cab, that had a great soundtrack, and Irene Cara was even on it with an original song, I think. And so the guy's got a good ear for music. But the thing is, you can't discount the importance of good music. Just ask George Lucas, right? Is Star Wars without John Williams?
Is
No.
Star Wars without all those Doors covers?
Hey, listen. You know what? It's too bad you have seen Oliver Stone's The Doors, but I feel like we should do it between frames because
You know, I have not.
What?
There we go. We can do that one.
Done. Book that.
Book it. It's
right
happening.
now.
Live
We are
on
booking
Missing
that.
Frames.
Yes, we are. We're booking that movie right now. Yes.
But no, you're right. You're absolutely right. I think you can't talk about this movie without the soundtrack being a prevalent part of that conversation and being a part of. It's so much a part of this movie's history and its legacy and the feel of the movie. But it's great. It's a great soundtrack. I agree. It's something I would probably pick up if I found it at a record store.
Yeah. It's a very solid one, and the only piece of music from Thomas Newman that actually made it to the soundtrack was a track called "To the Shock of Miss Louise," which is the music that's playing on the merry-go-round when Michael is pursuing Jami Gertz's character. Why can't I think of her name right now? But you know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's her name's Jami Gertz. That's all we need to know.
Yes, exactly.
But all right. Well, any final words on The Lost Boys?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I think that it's terrific fun. I think it's solidly entertaining, and I think that it's well worth seeing.
I will not discourage anyone who hasn't seen it from not seeing it. Although I hope you didn't listen to this whole episode with all the spoilers.
True.
But I don't know if it worked as well for me, but I was not. All I can say for a movie that I didn't love or wasn't particularly into, if the movie doesn't bore me or upset me, I am almost more willing to give it a pass. And The Lost Boys did not bore me or upset me. I was relatively engaged throughout. It has some great fun beats. It has some real creative visuals, and it was not time wasted, which is the most important thing. But I don't know if I would embrace it as warmly as some people would, including you. But that's
Fair.
really just to spite you more than anything else.
Well, and that's what makes our relationship work so well, is a baseline hatred that we both have to work past, much like Michael has to work past his vampirism.
You're right.
Yeah.
So what should our rating system be?
Oh my gosh!
How many Michaels do we want to give this?
Nope. Servings of maggots.
How many maggot servings would you give this on a scale 1 to 5, 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest?
I'd give it a solid 4.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I will go strictly in the middle. I'll do 2.5. I am very in the middle on this movie. But I didn't dislike it. Like that almost implies I didn't like it, and I definitely I enjoyed it. There are things that just didn't work for me.
So it's really a 3.
It's a 3. Let's round it up to a 3.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll get you to 4 eventually. We'll
I
settle
think
for 3
the
now.
soundtrack bumps it up to a 3.
There you go.
But it's worth a watch, and especially for people who have not seen Schumacher's more worthwhile work, I guess, or his more critically acclaimed work. It's worth a watch just to kind of see him come into his own a little bit. I think this is his second or third feature, so this was really the one that launched him to the A-list. And that's fun to watch, especially in a world that has gotten such a kick out of ripping that guy apart. Getting to watch this movie and see, like, this guy's got talent. That was fun. And there's a lot of talent on display in this movie. But John, thank you so much. I think there's a lot of talent on display here in this podcast thanks to you being here.
Oh, shucks. You're so kind, Sean.
And
you.
if people want to see that talent elsewhere on the internet, where else can they find you?
Well, you can find me occasionally writing over on KesselJunkie.com. I may be inspired to write a lengthy piece tearing apart a certain podcast host for not loving the Lost Boys. I don't know who. You can also find me here on the network co-hosting a Star Wars podcast called Aggressive Negotiations. We're not your typical boring Star Wars podcast that just talks about like D23 and all of the announcements and everything like that. We're doing deep dive stuff. So it's well worth checking out Aggressive Negotiations. And then I'm slowly walking through 1994 with my friend Mike in a show called Retro Perspective, where we are reviewing the films of 1994, one release week at a laborious time.
And if they wanted to find you on the Twitter?
Oh, just like everybody else, I don't want to be addicted to Twitter, but I think I'm addicted to Twitter, so I get a little more active sometimes than not. Kessel Junkie is where I'm at.
And I am at Shawn Doorman on Twitter, at Shawn Doorman on Instagram, and I would highly encourage whoever, all these Lost Boys fans, you're all out there, and I know you all hate me, so come at me. Join the revolution. Join John as he fights to end my podcasting career.
No. My goal is to extend it just so I can make you suffer.
Well, whatever he wants, go for it. Help him out. Round up the troops and get Kiefer Sutherland. You know what? Get Kiefer Sutherland to respond to me personally, and I'll love you forever. And I once again thank you for listening. Thank you for your kind comments on iTunes and elsewhere. I really appreciate it. Again, if you feel so obliged, feel free to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. And I'm thrilled, John, again, that we got to do this. I'm totally down for the Doors. I think we should make that happen.
Oh, please make it happen. But we have to watch the 4K final cut because Stone has jumped on the final cut bandwagon. He's cut 3 minutes out of it. So that's going to make all the difference in the world.
I think we should. And John, I think you should drink this and join us.